Hey YouTube, it's Jurak Master, and this is video 2 of the science behind my deck, and I'm just going to jump into the extra deck right now. I have 2 Giganoto, because it is probably the best Jurak Synchro we have. Meteor would be a close second in my opinion, and then Velveeta is just kind of there. I don't really like it that much. Has a decent effect. So the reason I have it at 2 is because 1 I find to not be enough, because you get a lot of situations where you've used one and you need the extra attack, or you just need another one because you don't want to go into something like Ancient Fairy or Black Rose. Typically it's because Ancient Fairy doesn't do the trick and Black Rose Dragon does not, typically is not a card you want to waste in a situation just to synchro to have the attack. So that's why I have 2 Giganoto. I have this 1 Meteor in here because it is hard to make, but when you can make it, it can really screw people over. I have, in multiple occasions actually, synchroed into this thing while the opponent has 5 back rows and I just trap stun them and go into it, and unlike Black Rose, it doesn't leave you vulnerable. You get a tuner back. So you could grab Aolo, Dino, Golem, whatever. Typically I go for Aolo if it's there because it gets me any Jurak. Well, except for the Synchros and Hera. So it gets me the rest of them. And it's very useful to do. It's just a little better alternative for Black Rose if you can make the levels for it. I have 1 Velveeta. I'm probably going to drop this really soon. I'll probably put in my Steel Swarm Roach for it. I'm going to do a little bit more playing around with this as we get more Exceeds, and I might change what Synchro monsters I use. So, just keep watching my updates for that. And, yeah, Velveeta, I'm thinking of dropping for Roach because, I'll go into that a little more. It's because Velveeta is there, I used just as an option, but now that I have changed the main deck a little bit, I find it less and less useful because I always have a different out that I don't need to use this for. It comes out generally pretty weak, pretty much never get it over 2100, and it's just really not worth putting in anymore. And I used to run it just because of the whole solidarity thing, and don't get me wrong, it's good with Goes and Match and Rivalry of Warlords and whatever, but it's just not as good as maybe running Steel Swarm Roach to stop people from special summoning, especially with this deck running Burden and Lances and everything like that, so that Roach's 1900 isn't a big deal. And even then, this thing would be pretty much as weak as Roach, but with a much less useful effect. I'm running 1 Utopia, because Utopia is 2500, and it's just very good. Its effect can negate its own attack if you attack into something stupid, and it's just a good card in my opinion. Plus, it is 2500 attack, so it's like making those level 8s that are a little bit harder to make in this deck than in other decks. So it's like making your own Stardust with a different ability, and it's very useful in my opinion. So that's why I've got it in there. Definitely not gonna put it up to 2 in this deck. That's kind of stupid. Grenosaurus is in here because he works with, well, originally Solidarity, but no longer. Mainly now it's because he works with my side deck, with Goes and Match and Rivalry of Warlords, and because he is 300 stronger than my Juraks, so just in case. His effect is kind of not that great, but usable. 1 Trishula, just a very good level 9 to go into, and this deck can make those quite easily. 1 Stardust, because it's Stardust Dragon. I'm only running 1 of most of these, because there's no reason for me to have 2. I like the options rather than having more of them later on. which I don't synchro that often anyway, so I need the options, not the ability to play multiples. Scrap Dragon, because it's a very good level 8. Black Rose, just one, because I never really need more, because it bombs the field for me. Ancient Fairy Dragon, because Gravekeepers are annoying, and other such things. Also a very good defender. So I'm just going to move a few of these over. Bryonic, kind of also self-explanatory. It's limited to one. That is one card that I would have higher if I could. And Gaia Knight, the Force of Earth. Before you guys go and ask, I'm not running Orient Dragon, nor will I ever, I don't think, because Orient Dragon has to hit a synchro, and Exceeds are out, so we're going to see slightly less synchroing. Don't think that I'm saying that we won't see synchroing. It's still going to be very dominant, but I like having the attack over the synchro removal, because typically I don't have a problem getting rid of synchros. So, I hit this tripod a lot, sorry. And Catastor, because it stops a lot of decks now. Not all decks are running Dark Monsters. You see a lot of decks running the same attribute, and it's just a good option. And Hyper Librarian. As I said in Jurak Talk number 10, I went into a lot of detail on Librarian and why I use it over Android. But Librarian, just a good effect, gets around Catastor, and it's just very, very good. So it also makes it a lot nicer to play against synchro spammers, because they're no longer as much of an issue for you. Now I'm going to go on to the side deck, and this I'm probably going to end up changing kind of soon, so I'll show that in an update and go into a little detail on why. But for now, I will be giving you what I have and why I have it there. Oppression. This card works with a lot of your monsters in Jirax, because mainly Guaiba works with it, Velo works with it, Hera works with it. They can't stop those. They all activate during damage step. So it works very well. Skill drains, because Jirax are beaters, and they don't need the effects quite as much. Some effects still work with it. You get Hera, you get your Aolo, but just a hint, if you're going to side into Skill Drain, probably want to side out Kinkabayo. I actually typically side out Kinkabayo when I have to side. So, 2 Gozen match, shuts down a lot of decks, and it doesn't really affect this one. Same thing with Rivalry of Warlords. So that's the traps for the side deck. I know I go in reverse pretty much for my side deck, but that's just because the monsters and spells aren't quite as important as the traps. These two are in there kind of for gadgets, also because I don't like traps, so a lot of decks will run lots of traps, and I get rid of them. If it hits my own traps, I'm fine with that. I get to draw into other cards I'd rather have, and I don't have to worry about them having it because they had it at the time and I didn't. So 2 of these, Noblemen of Crossout, because of Gravekeepers and worms and stuff. Very annoying. I have 2 System Downs, also because of gadgets, which I think will get a lot better. As we have the Exceeds now, more level 4s that are just going to continually be more of a problem, like Steel Swarm Roach, and all of the others, Utopia being out. It's just really annoying to have to face them. And just 2 monsters, which I'll probably end up changing because they haven't been as useful lately. The 2 Battle Faders, because I don't like facing OTK decks, and this just gives me a way to survive against them. So they clear my field and attack me, and I get to survive for a turn, so that now they've overextended, and I survive, which is a very big problem for a lot of people when they overextend, because then you can just drop all your stuff on them, like Dark Hole, Giant Grenade, make your own synchros, get rid of theirs. Very useful to survive after an OTK attempt. So that's the main science behind this deck, but I will go into a little bit more on this side deck, like the numbers and such, because I believe that working with the numbers of cards and the categories of cards being balanced, as I said in video 1 about the categories of traps, I think that is one of the most important things in deck building, is balancing your categories. By that I mean like what the effect is for, what it's used for, like monster removal, summon negation, whatever, all that kind of stuff, protection, whatnot. So I do have one oppression because it stops monsters from being summoned on me, and it's very useful. This I also put in monster stopping because a lot of effects pretty much stop summon, or stopping effects a lot of times stop summons, stop them from removing cards from your field. It's kind of protection, kind of monster stopping, so I have it in protection as well. I run 2 instead of 3, as I do run 2 of most of them, to make more room in the side deck, and 2 is all I really need to put in. Rivalry of Warlords, I would probably put under the category of, well, I don't even know, it just kind of stops decks that run a lot of different types and whatnot. Same with Goes and Match, different attributes. So 2 is a pretty good number for side deck cards. So the categories in this, at one point I actually knew what my categories were because I had to design the deck, but now I kind of forgot because it's been a while. They're pretty balanced. I think one category ended up having pretty much all of the cards. So like when I face Frog Monarchs or Gladiator Beasts or something, I can pretty much side all of my cards. Well, pretty much all traps at least. And I'll go into monsters first. These I have pretty much for protection. I threw these in recently, so I knew that off the top of my head. Protection and prevention. Kind of monster removal, protection, prevention, and gadgets are a pain. That's all I can say. So that is why those are there. The numbers are all 2, as you can see. Pretty much every card in this side deck, the exception being my oppression, is at 2, as you can see, because 2 is a good number for side deck cards. And then you have 1 extra for something that's limited or something like Royal Oppression, which is a very good card. So that's the science behind my deck. If I missed anything, which I probably did, because I was trying to do it without having written anything down on topics I wanted to cover, I will mention them in later deck profiles when I update, or I'll just profile this deck and go over it as I show you guys the deck, rather than saying the card names and the number they're at. If I've missed anything, that'll be the case, and I appreciate that you guys watched. Just please like the video, and I did put a lot of effort into building my Jirax and pretty much perfecting them to the way that they can be run. I look at a lot of cards a lot of the time, and I do try to put the cards in categories and make sure that literally everything possible to cover is covered and balanced, like the coverage is balanced, so that this deck has the best chance of winning that it can every time it can, as consistently as it can. So that is why I spent so much time on these 2 parts of the video and made it such a long video. I appreciate that you guys watched, and I hope it's helpful for you, whether building Jirax, trying to understand the game, or even that it helped you learn a few things about how to build a deck and keep it balanced and consistent. I hope that it helped you guys, and whether that be for Jirax or not, I'm just glad that I helped. So comment or message me if it did.